I moved in with my brother right after college. He had a stable job, a great apartment in the city, and a calm presence that made life feel secure. We hadn't lived together since high school, but the bond we shared had only grown stronger with time. He'd always looked out for me. He was the kind of brother who'd cover my mistakes, guide me through heartbreaks, and never let me feel alone. So, when he offered me a place to stay while I figured out my next move, I didn't hesitate. A few weeks in, I met her, his girlfriend, Tara. She was everything you'd imagine the perfect partner to be. Confident, warm, and with a sense of humor that made anyone around her feel at ease. At first, I admired her from a distance. She wasn't just beautiful. She was composed, smart, and deeply kind. She brought out a lighter side in my brother, one I hadn't seen in years. They had a connection that felt natural, unforced. I respected that. Or, at least I told myself I did. It started small, her asking for my help while my brother was at work. "Can you reach that top shelf? Mind helping me carry this?" Each interaction was innocent on the surface, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't look forward to them. The conversations started to stretch longer, and sometimes when she laughed at something I said, I felt a warmth that made me uncomfortable. I brushed it off. She was his girlfriend, and I was his brother. But those small moments built up. One evening, we were sitting on the balcony, the city lights flickering beneath us. She spoke about her dreams, her fears, and how sometimes she felt like she was just going through the motions. I listened too closely. She looked at me like I understood her in a way others didn't. And for a split second, I wondered what it would be like if she wasn't with him. I hated that thought. It felt like betrayal just thinking it. I tried distancing myself. Started staying out longer, keeping conversations short. But then she noticed. "Did I do something wrong?" she asked one night. "You've been avoiding me." I lied, saying I was just stressed. But her eyes lingered on mine a moment longer than they should have. And I realized then it wasn't just me. She felt it too. Still, I told myself nothing would happen. I reminded myself of the years my brother had supported me, all the times he put me first. I told myself I would never cross that line. But temptation doesn't knock loudly, it whispers. And every time I saw her, the whisper got louder. That night, I stood in the hallway listening to them laugh in the living room. I peeked around the corner. She caught my eye and smiled. It was a simple gesture, but it made my heart race. I turned away quickly, ashamed. But deep down, I already knew I was slipping. And I was too afraid to admit how far I might fall. 2 days later, my brother left for a business trip. Just a 3-day out-of-town conference. He trusted me to hold down the apartment, and Tara decided to stay over while he was gone. It made sense, we all lived like a unit by then. But the moment he rolled his suitcase out the door, something shifted. That night, Tara and I ordered takeout, and ended up talking for hours. There was no tension, not at first, just easy conversation. She laughed at my jokes, told me stories about her childhood, and even asked about my failed relationships. When I mentioned one ex who cheated on me, she shook her head and said, "You deserve better." It wasn't what she said, it was how she said it, soft and sincere. The next morning, she made coffee before I woke up. I found her in the kitchen, barefoot, hair tied back, humming to herself. It felt intimate in a way that made me pause. She handed me a mug and smiled. "I like having someone to talk to," she said. "It's easier with you." I nodded, said nothing, but something cracked open inside me. By afternoon, the line between casual and personal blurred further. We sat too close on the couch. Our arms touched, and neither of us moved. She asked about my dreams, and I opened up too much. She listened, resting her chin on her hand, eyes locked on mine. I could feel something building between us, subtle but unmistakable. Later, while folding laundry together, our hands touched. She didn't pull away. She looked up, right into my eyes, and held the gaze. I felt my breath catch. My instincts screamed to walk away, to put distance between us. But I didn't. I stayed, frozen by a mix of guilt and longing. That night, she knocked on my door. "Can't sleep," she said. Mind if I sit here for a while? She came in, sat on the edge of my bed. We talked in whispers, our voices barely above silence. She leaned her head on my shoulder. I knew I should have said something, should have made her leave. But I didn't. As the minutes passed, I could feel her heart racing just like mine. We were dangerously close. Then, without warning, she reached for my hand. I looked at her, confused, torn. She didn't say a word, just looked at me like she was asking a question she already knew the answer to. I stood up, told her it was late, and that we should both sleep. She nodded, left without protest. But as the door closed behind her, I realized I wasn't relieved. I was disappointed, and that terrified me. I lay awake the entire night, haunted by the weight of what almost happened. I told myself I had done the right thing. But the truth was, a part of me didn't want it to stop. I knew then, I had crossed a line in my heart, and going back wouldn't be easy. The next day felt heavier. Every word between us carried weight. We barely spoke, but the silence said enough. I avoided her eyes. She avoided mine. We were pretending nothing had happened, but the air between us was too thick with everything unsaid. I tried to stay out, took long walks, sat in cafes just to give space. But it didn't matter. Something had already changed, and we both knew it. That evening, I came home late. She was still awake, sitting at the table with a glass of wine, staring at nothing. When she saw me, she smiled, tired and unsure. "We should talk," she said. I hesitated, then sat across from her. Her voice was quiet. "I didn't mean for any of this. I just feel lost." I wanted to say something honest, something that could stop the pull between us. But I couldn't find the words. She stood up and walked toward me. No hesitation. Her hand touched mine. "Tell me to go," she whispered. I should have. But I didn't. Instead, I stood too. The moment stretched, and the weight of everything right and wrong collapsed into it. I leaned in. She didn't stop me. What happened next was everything we had both been avoiding, and everything we had been drifting toward since the beginning. It wasn't tender. It wasn't sweet. It was desperate, reckless, and full of guilt even as it was happening. Every second screamed that this was a mistake, but neither of us stopped. It ended as quickly as it started, and silence followed. Heavy, suffocating. She covered her face. I stared at the floor, unable to speak. Then, a sound broke through everything. The door. It opened. We both froze. My brother was home. I turned in slow motion. He stood there, keys still in hand, eyes wide but cold. Tara stepped back. I tried to speak, to explain something that couldn't be explained. But nothing came out. He didn't ask a question. He didn't raise his voice. He just stared at us, like he didn't recognize who we were. Then he walked past us, straight to his room, and shut the door. Tara began to cry, whispering apologies that didn't matter. I felt hollow. I hadn't just betrayed him. I had destroyed the only real relationship that ever mattered. The trust, the years, the bond, we shattered it in a single night. She left before morning, packed in silence, and walked out the door, not saying a word. I didn't stop her. I couldn't even look at her. I knocked on his door. No answer. I sat outside it for hours, trying to think of what to say. But there was nothing. By sunrise, he was gone again. Left a note. "Don't be here when I get back." I read it over and over, hoping I had imagined it. But I hadn't. And just like that, the damage was done. No reset. No forgiveness. Just silence. And the truth I now had to carry alone. I moved out that same day, packed what little I had, and left the spare key on the counter. The apartment that once felt like home now felt like a crime scene, every corner stained with guilt. I didn't tell anyone why I was leaving. There was no one to explain it to. I didn't return calls or answer texts. I just disappeared. I told myself it was temporary, but deep down, I knew I wouldn't be welcome back. The days that followed blurred into each other. I found a small, cheap room on the other side of the city. It was quiet, and that silence became both a punishment and a relief. I replayed that night over and over. What I should have said, where I could have stopped it. But no version of it ended differently. The truth remained. I crossed a line I couldn't uncross, and someone I loved more than anyone paid the price. I thought about reaching out. I wrote messages, deleted them, dialed his number, hung up before it rang. I even stood outside his office building one afternoon, watching people come and go, hoping to see him, to maybe get a second chance at saying something. But he never came out, or maybe he did, and I just didn't recognize him anymore. Weeks passed. Then months. One day, I got a message from her mother. "He's not the same," she wrote. "Whatever happened between you two broke something." She didn't ask for details, and I didn't offer any. But those words stayed with me. I hadn't just lost a brother. I'd stolen something from him. Trust, peace, maybe the version of love he believed in. I ruined that. As for Tara, I never saw her again. She vanished from both our lives, and part of me hoped she was starting over somewhere, living a life untouched by what we did. But another part hoped she thought about it too. That it haunted her like it haunted me. Not out of revenge, but because if it didn't matter to her, then it meant I was the only one carrying this weight, and that would have been unbearable. There's no happy ending here. No redemption arc. Just the echo of a mistake that cost more than I could afford. I learned that betrayal doesn't always come with loud drama. Sometimes it's quiet. It walks in on bare feet, in soft conversations, in a glance held a second too long. And by the time you notice it, it's already done its damage. I still think about my brother. I still imagine sitting across from him, telling him how sorry I am, not just for what I did, but for who I became in that moment. I used to think I'd do anything to undo it. But life doesn't offer undo buttons. Only consequences. Only silence. Now, I carry that silence with me. Every day. And I remind myself of what I lost, not because I need the pain, but because I deserve it. That was the moment everything changed. Not just between us, but inside me. And that's something I'll never escape.